Thank you. Thank you. To start us off, thank you everybody for joining. I know this is a busy time right now with everything happening in the world. Um, COVID, obviously, taking time to boost your knowledge on how to approach this upcoming holiday season is appreciated. And I think it'll be rewarded during this discussion with a lot of very useful information for you, I hope. This is a joint webinar hosted by Feedonomics and Reflektion. It's called How to Prepare for the Holidays. This is going to be a very interesting holiday season. I think we can all agree that the importance of digital is greater now than ever with the sort of changing landscape amid this pandemic. So we're excited to share a few tips and tricks and pointers with you all today. When I say we, I'm referring to my good friend Franz here. Let's get over here. Perfect. So to start off, my name's Patrick. I'm our Senior Director of Global Accounts at Feedonomics. I've been with the company for basically for as long as it's been around. I think I was the 7th employee, and now we have close to 200 folks scattered across the globe servicing different time zones. Very happy to be talking to you. And then we've got Franz from Reflektion. Franz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Franz Kahlard with Reflektion. I've been at Reflektion for coming up on, well, actually over 2 years now. And our basic platform does a lot of optimization for recommendations, preview search, full page search, category pages, and we do AI and everything on top of that. My history in the optimization and analytics field goes back, I don't know, until the Stone Age somewhere, about 25 years, starting with web trends and working on an optimization platform for A/B and multivariate testing. So I've been in that space for quite some time now, and I've learned a couple of little tidbits along the way, which I'd like to share with you guys.
Thank you, Franz. Great. So I'm going to kick us off with the first section here, tips for the holiday season. We'll get started with Feedonomics, and then later we'll make it to Reflektion. And the two dovetail together quite nicely because the focus right now, for the first section of the presentation is going to be driving traffic to your website, to the .com. Feedonomics is a platform that sits typically after the e-commerce platform. So you see Shopify, Oracle, Magento, WooCommerce, any one of these, maybe what we refer to as your e-commerce cart. And the challenge is getting data from those systems, your product catalog data, titles, descriptions, color, size, link, image link, all of this information. You've got to get it from there out to different channels like Google Shopping, like Facebook, Instagram, marketplaces like Amazon and eBay. The goal either being to drive traffic from that channel back to the website where conversions take place, or in the case of marketplaces, for conversions to actually take place out on those marketplaces, right? But either way, you need to send data out to those different endpoints. Now, once we get the data, once we get the customer back to your website, that's where all of Reflektion's AI algorithms, very, very powerful algorithms, can take place. And that's what we'll learn about more in the next section. But to get us going with Feedonomics, this is the vision: pulling data from anywhere, listing product data everywhere. So, of course, many merchants have a presence on Google Shopping. They also have presence on all these other channels. And the name of the game isn't just getting data out to these channels, it's optimizing data on the channel. Many folks could be advertising, let's say on Google Shopping. The reality is it's a very competitive landscape. Everybody's sort of bidding aggressively out on these different systems. Can you differentiate yourself? Can you connect with the shopper that is searching for Nike size 12 sky blue running shoes? Does your title reflect that purchasing intent, right? And we'll talk more about what that means in a minute. But the goal is going to be to align your product catalog data with what users are searching for. So here's an example, right? On the right-hand side, you're seeing a product that's searched for, Nike Air Max running shoes, size 12 black. You can see what the PLA looks like in this case. And in the lower left, you'll see we've outlined sort of two examples: a raw title, Air Max shoes, and an optimized title, Nike Air Max running shoes, size 12 black. So the key here is Air Max shoes would be the title on the website, let's say, in many cases. That might be kind of the title that you have in your catalog as is. We don't necessarily want to send that out to the channel because it doesn't have the juicy keywords, running, size 12, black, that somebody's actually likely to search with, right? And when you do connect with a query that has that kind of detail, this is a query that is likely to convert because it has that background research behind it, right? Somebody already knows that they're a size 12. Somebody already knows that they need black. And so you really want to connect with those particular shoppers. And so we take a title like Air Max shoes and enhance it to be Nike Air Max running shoes size 12 black. This is the kind of data enrichment that you guys should be thinking about however you try to do it. Of course, we'll talk about different ways that Feedonomics supports this. At a minimum, if you've got a couple of top performing products and you want to enhance the data to be reflective of this, you should do it. This is the philosophy: enhance your product data, right? No rogue HTML, no missing values, map everything appropriately. That's what we want. And here is an example of how we do it in the platform, just to give you kind of a concept of what's happening like under the hood with a system like Feedonomics. On the right-hand side, you see the column that says raw, Air Zoom Pegasus. The brand is Nike Corporation. The category looks accurate coming in. The description has all of that HTML junk in there, right? So with all of this, this is what we're getting. And what we want is everything you're seeing on the left. You see there's highlighting to show this is what we've effectively transformed. We know Nike Corporation is accurate, but maybe not as appropriate, right? It should just be Nike. We're stripping out the HTML. We're cleaning up the title. And we do all of this using rules. So if you've got a catalog that's 500 products, 500,000 products, millions of products, or all the way down to 20 products, the advantage of using a system like Feedonomics is that you can do your optimization in a scalable way across all of your products quickly and efficiently, and then the optimizations that you've built in then impact performance out on the channel. So you're improving performance on the channel, and you're also improving your operational efficiency, so to speak, because instead of having to make these changes using your own in-house engineering team, instead of having to kind of plod through the mud manually using Google Sheets or using Excel, this can be very streamlined, very quick and efficient. Okay, so we've talked about Google Shopping. You've got other channels as well, of course. I just wanted to throw in a screenshot here from Amazon because the reality is the principles are largely the same. When you optimize data, especially when you're the brand manufacturer, especially on Amazon, when you own the listing, the way that you construct your titles is going to have a direct effect on the way that the listing presents in the marketplace. So we want to spend considerable time optimizing the data, again, for that same reason, so that you can have higher search ranking in Amazon if you're the brand manufacturer. Now, if you're not the brand manufacturer and you have a little less control over the way that listings present, the automation and functionality of a feed platform is still important because it ensures that basically your data is flowing appropriately. Inventory is consistently managed. Orders, when they flow from Amazon to your OMS, are flowing smoothly. And so we can facilitate all of that, basically. Data enhancement and order synchronization when it comes to marketplaces. So a little more detail on what we mean when we talk about optimization. I think this is a great slide. It highlights the need to emphasize these unique qualities. Power words: organic, man-made, non-GMO, vegan, synthetic leather. These are all things that folks, when they search with these key terms, it suggests that there's something important about the product that they're looking for. And that's why it's important to include it. I wouldn't necessarily include like nylon or polyester, right? These aren't like sexy keywords that, oh, I want to buy a nylon shirt or I want to buy a polyester pair of shorts. No, but 100% cotton, yes. So that's like a power word or a power phrase. And when we review the feeds and we dig into the data, we identify what are these keywords and keyword phrases that people are searching with that we want to make sure we're capturing, right? That's going to happen using the sorts of rules that I was showing you earlier, including gender, easy win, right? So women's shoes, men's shoes, highlighting it like that. Leveraging all of these keywords also in custom labels. Custom labels are key because they allow you to actually segment your bids. up to this point, we've been talking about data enrichment for the purposes of matching user search queries. Yes, that's important. It's also important because it gives you a hierarchical data structure that you can use to organize your bids within Google Shopping, or if you're talking about Facebook, audience targeting, right? You can target differently as long as you've got that segmentation built into the feed layer. You want to use more characters, err on the side of more. I don't mean like ruthless keyword stuffing. I'm not about that. I think that you can also kind of go overboard with it. But the reality is most people are not at risk of that. They're underutilizing the amount of space that they have with Google Shopping titles. I think it's 150 characters max and 70 recommended, but you can really ignore the 70 character recommendation. It's not that important, because what's the most important is that you get that PLA to list against a relevant query on the search page. You don't really want to be in the shopping tab. If you're just showing in the shopping tab, that's not great, because most of your conversions happen straight from the search page. So you want to make sure you have enough keyword juice in there that you're going to get the impressions that you want. Okay, once you've optimized the data to the nines using a platform like Feedonomics, if you decide to do it manually or through your own in-house engineering resources, that's fine. The goal is get optimized data out to your different channels, one way or another. Once you've done that, you want to be able to split test the data also. Because the reality is even though you know it's a shoe, you don't necessarily know if it should be like a stiletto or a pump. What is that keyword that's really going to make a difference there, right? And so we have tools that help us mine for those keywords in a way that is like, okay, these are the keywords that are clearly indicating performance. They're driving conversions, they're driving revenue. They're not in the search queries. We can bring to the surface keywords that are converting, but are not in your titles. And so in those cases, we want to be able to test inserting them into titles. So maybe for half the products, insert this keyword or keyword phrase. For the next half, leave it out, and then monitor these two groups of data side by side, these two titles side by side. And when I mean groups, I mean like, so if you've got a feed of 10,000 products, let's say, you could say for half of them, let's put the MPN in there, for half, let's leave it out, and then let's monitor performance between these two groups. So it's not just about optimizing to best practices at the beginning. It's about setting up a system and a workflow where you can iteratively improve all of your optimizations in your catalog over time. And this is enhanced with A/B testing functionality, right? Displaying correct inventory levels, certainly important, especially on marketplaces. When you're talking about Google Shopping and Facebook and all these channels where you're trying to drive traffic back to your site, inventory is important. You need to make sure that the inventory on Google that you send to these channels aligns with the inventory that you have on your website. That's the key. If you don't, and they're like, you start listing products and you say they're in stock, but when the shopper gets to the site, it's out of stock, that can start to create problems, errors. That desynchronization is problematic. I'll tell you, it's especially problematic on marketplaces. If you send inventory to the marketplace, let's say Amazon, and say, I've got 100 of these in stock, and you get those orders in, but you can't fulfill on those because you're actually out of stock, it can be a big problem. It can result in account suspensions that can be very challenging to overturn. So when it comes to inventory, do not mess around. Make sure that you've got a solution that allows you to, in a very streamlined way, manage your inventory to different marketplaces, between different systems. It's key. Pricing, of course, as well, because if you say on the marketplace that your price is half of what it should be, or you, God forbid, you forget a zero or you mess something like that up, the consequences can be pretty severe. So having tools in place that safeguard against these scenarios is key. And of course, it's something that we can help with. We call it data governance. It allows us to basically monitor the data and have the wire be tripped if there's ever an increase in errors or suspended products, so that we can dig in and resolve those issues right away. It's exactly right here, data governance. So automatically get alerts when new products are added and not optimized, products are categorized, missing critical attributes. Any of these custom conditions can be defined in here. And the reality is it needs to be customizable, because every e-commerce setup is different. There are some key issues that can come up that we want to screen for, but there's a high degree of variability. And so we definitely need to make sure that we've got safeguards in place across the board that protect you guys when you're distributing to all these different systems. FeedAlerts, it's in a similar vein, data governance. is sort of broad spectrum data monitoring. FeedAlerts is driven by a direct API with Google Merchant Center. So if any of you have ever worked inside of the Merchant Center, you know what it's like, and there's like this requirement to go in and check it regularly, because if you don't check it and then products error out for whatever reason, you're missing revenue during that period of time. I mean, wonder if like you have a couple of products that go down right around Black Friday. Who's going to fix that? Who's going to quickly solve that problem? How are you going to get those back online? How are you going to initially know about it? If you have two products that get aired out, Google doesn't just tell you, they don't email you. That'd be nice, but it doesn't happen. And so the functionality here that we built to is this basically automated mechanism that checks the Merchant Center multiple times a day and notifies you if ever there's some sort of dysfunction or disparity there, right? Okay, so I just covered a lot of ground. Basically, data ingestion, data cleansing, data optimization and enrichment, and then distribution to all of your different channels, as well as monitoring of the data across all of those channels on an ongoing basis. The next question is, how does that happen? Who does that? Is it just a technology platform? What's the deal? It's a technology platform. It sits in the cloud. And on top of the technology platform, we have a team of people, right? Not just people, senior technicians, great people, experienced people in Los Angeles, in Austin, on the East Coast, in Australia, in Philippines, in London, in Canada, all over the place. And so when we say 24/7 support, we mean it, because we have people that canvass the globe and are able to meet those kinds of SLAs. I think, to be explicit, our standard SLA is a 3-hour, maximum 3-hour response time to a new request, maximum, and a 1-hour maximum response time on an urgent request. And in reality, it'll be much quicker in both of those, because in a way, if we give you the best tech in the world, but we don't give you the team to operate it effectively with the expertise of having optimized thousands of feeds, you're not going to get the best result. So the reality is we want to pair you guys with the team, with an integration specialist, with an enterprise feed manager, and a group of folks underneath that person that can help ensure that your data, once it's delivered to us, is fully optimized and monitored on an ongoing basis across all of these channels. Okay, so that's Feedonomics. In a moment, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Franz. I want to call out one thing that I think Franz will develop more in his discussion, but everything I've described that Feedonomics does, it's very flexible, right? We can distribute data to all of these different systems. One of the systems that we partner with very closely is Reflektion. As you'll learn from Franz, Reflektion's algorithms and functionality in large part depends on the quality of the data that they receive in the form of a feed. And so Feedonomics actually sits after the website and then provides content from the website, the catalog, optimizes that content, and then delivers it into the Reflektion system, where the Reflektion system then is able to work its awesome AI-based site optimization magic. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Franz. Franz, take it away.
All righty, thank you. So that's a good segue there. Thanks, Patrick. When you're thinking about this feed, yes, we ingest the feed as well in order to know things about what's being shown on a given e-commerce website. That's where the magic happens, because once people come to a website, they may have come from any of those sources that Patrick mentioned earlier, like any of these different marketing channels or so. They may have come to the website from those, and that is a context that they have set. Now we know where they came from, so that's a bit of information we would have around them. And then once they get to the site, they do things on the site. They sort of deliver these signals of intent as they go along, and that helps us understand who these people are and what they want. And beyond that, of course, here's the customer ID itself, and that gives us an understanding on whether or not they're repeat customers, whether or not they knew what they have purchased in the past. So there's a lot that the artificial intelligence and machine learning can grab onto once you have those bits of information. So within the context of this topic, what can we do for the holidays? I am coming at it from an AI perspective, but I'm hoping to give you some tips and tricks, hopefully, that will work manually as well if you set up manual rules, because not all of this stuff can be done very easily, setting up these rules. So keep that in mind. I'll try to sort of find ways to bridge that gap a little bit. If you don't have a system like Reflektion, some of these tips will still be useful. But we pull it together in a more holistic fashion across the entire site and the entire shopper's journey. So that's where this is coming from. And to start off with, I wanted to sort of explain first, what does it truly mean, on-site personalization, one-to-one personalization in real time. And it means that at any given point in the shopper's journey on the site, even if they come to the site fresh, completely brand new, we still know information about them, and we want to show them the most relevant products to them, to each individual shopper, based on any bits of information we know about them. And right now we've got, 100 days to go before the holiday season. So most digital marketers can manually create rules to manage these sometimes, like a first-time shopper, let's show them discounts. A repeat visitor, let's show them more of what they were interested in the first place. How do we get those people, those individual segments to convert, and what do they need? So we take all this information and we have sort of the concept of what these personas are, and we layer on top of that previous holiday shopping patterns, things that we're seeing in real time, what are their cohorts doing, and what and for whom they're shopping for. So within that, on this slide here, I wanted to talk about a couple of types of personas to think about. And I have this handy dandy eye chart over here, which I would like to first go through. The first one is like, I'm just calling the intent, I'm calling them replenish. Who are they? Well, they want to come and they want to add an existing purchase. Think like an automotive world. They want, they buy a motor oil every 6 months, or they want to add on to it. Maybe we know that they have, say in the apparel world, they've bought everything except for shoes, and we know that there's a shoe that goes well with that outfit. So let's add on to that existing purchase. So this is the tactics that you can use to them is to send them alerts in email, for instance, about, hey, you're almost out of a motor oil or something like that, or you need to be replacing it, or hey, here's a new add-on that goes well with what you already have in your closet. So that can be done on site and in email with various different triggers and notifications, and even just showing products when they come to the site. So for instance, the next one would be, the determined user. They come, they know what they want, but they're willing to wait for the best price. So they may put something in a shopping cart and they want an alert when the price drops or something like that. So they're also susceptible to similar and compatible items. So we could use a recommendation, for instance, in email that says, hey, look, your price, here's the price of the item in your shopping cart, but here's similar items that are extremely relevant to you, and maybe that can trigger somebody coming back to the site and purchasing, and that can also be shown on the site when they're there. So there's a cohesive experience between what people see in email as well as what they see on the site when they search, when they look at category pages, product recommendation, those little product strips on a home page, for instance, you may also like those kinds of things. Another shopper type is the devoted one. These are the repeat customers, and they come back and they are seasonal. They come back and buy things a lot. And for them, you want to make sure that they have a very flawless and flexible checkout process. The site needs to know what they want. And that's where we can do personalized cross-sells, based on what we know about their online behavior, their in-store behavior, basically physically in person. And even if they use multiple devices in order to make purchases, we can combine those in order to understand more about that particular type of persona. That's a really important one because those are the people you want to keep happy. And that's within, from a targeting rules perspective, the best thing you can do with them is to make sure that you understand who they are and segment them and provide them with the best possible experience so that they can check out quickly, their credit cards and all this stuff is on file, and it's easy for them to do click, click, click and check out, especially on mobile devices. Another type of user would be the comparison shopper, and they're coming to your site. They may be new or returning visitors, but they oftentimes, when they're searching, they will go and go into the category pages and always sort by review, or maybe they're looking at how many reviews, the star ratings, or maybe they're looking at a price rating. You know, they're maybe doing highest prices first or lowest first, whatever they do. Every time they make those kinds of switches on a site, to us, that is a intent. You know, and then if they're shopping and they're looking at shoes, for instance, and they're all looking at them in the $100 range, that range is also another signal that they're sending us about what they're trying to do. So we use our technology to prioritize rankings based on maybe, you know, we will more heavily emphasize the similar priced items, or we'll show the highest review scores first for these types of people when we present products to them in any one of the various different ways that we can do that. And that type of personalization takes into consideration the signals of intent that they've sent us, which allows them to be more confident in that next click that they're going to make based on our recommendation. And that's something that we measure as a success. So the last type of customer is typically the hardest one to do anything for. Those are the ones that are coming in on the shopping safari. They're coming in for discovery. You know, they want to come in to a site, like for instance, you know, a site that has multiple categories on there. Like a Big Lots or something like that, where they're coming in, they're going across all these categories, and they want to have a connected journey. And we need to understand what their signals of intent are, because it's maybe an activity or something that they're shopping for. Maybe they want to go camping, and within camping, they get a tent. But then in other categories, there's these other products that go along with it, you know, like camping food, or food that you would, or maybe propane tanks, or shopping, sleeping bags, anything like that. Those things are combined together across categories, and that allows us to understand these signals and look at it on a collaborative way with what is everybody else shopping for. And if people that buy tents buy these other items with them, and we present a set like that, so that we can use this observed cross-category, cross-crowd behavior and put it together in a way that allows this customer to traverse through the site. Now, I know that's a lot, but that's kind of the first part of it, is personalization, understand your audience. Next slide, please. Thank you. So once you have that in mind, you know, those types of personas, you know, what are the attributes that make up those people? So I wanted to understand that a little bit, because for a marketer, you can use these attributes to manually target products and content. Without AI, it's really hard to sort of grab all of these together, because it's time consuming, and rules don't adapt to real-time signals within expected and unexpected shopping events, just like this. You know, like during COVID, we saw a run on hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and masks. And you know, it's really hard to sort of predict that kind of stuff happening with rules. And how would you adapt your site to that? Would you promote those categories in your navigation, for instance, so that they're more obvious, even though it's like a backwater accessories category that you'd have to go through like 3 menus to get to? Do you get that to the forefront when something like that happens? So this is a little diagram here that shows the various different aspects of personalization. So, you know, some of them are explicit, some of them are implicit, and others are real-time signals of intent. And you know, by explicit, okay, we know, you know, how many times you've visited, how many products you've seen, what's your search history, what's your add to cart, based on the fact that you've come to the site before. So we have that information. Then there's the additional layer that says, okay, you know, we know seasonality, you know, based on the previous experience from the whole site. We understand geography, like people from California shopping differently than people from Vermont. Time of day, around, you know, those kinds of things can definitely make a difference. Are those aspects, are they meaningful or not, right? Are these actual signals, or are they just the same as with everybody? You know, is there a signal within the noise? And then we look at the cohort layers. You know, what are other lookalike customers that shop just like you, or have shopped just like you, based on the same type of experience? Maybe it's a geo that they came from, or maybe, you know, everyone's doing it around, you know, right before Mother's Day, or right before the holidays. And what are the trending items that are happening during this time frame that will appeal to these people? Then you go at the individual, and I hinted at that on the previous slide a little bit. You know, is there a price preference? Is there a style preference? Maybe a size or fitment. Maybe you're shopping for your 2000 Ford Escape or something like that, and there's items that belong to that particular vehicle that you have, and people are looking to buy things for that. All those things are part of the individual layers. So we want to make sure that we're showing items that are very specific to what that person is looking for, and not showing parts for, say, a Chevy or something like that that is not even in their garage. So we need to be very clear about those things. And then you have the business merchandising layer, and that's really where the business comes in. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to optimize for top line revenue or margin? And there's trade-offs that you have to make, and you have to be able to test whether or not that's worth it. And that's why our platform has built an A/B testing in order to do this. So we can figure out whether or not a business opportunity is worth pursuing. What is the opportunity cost? And within that, then we can decide, do we want to, through overriding rules, do we want to in fact boost something or bury something or pin something? We can set rules within the AI as well to override them. But without the testing, you won't know really what you're giving up. So that's just sort of an aspect of the various different personalization sort of metrics that we can use in order to do some manual targeting. But clearly, this with AI, it's a little bit less time consuming to do. Next slide, please. So I wanted to have the rubber hit the road a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I want to talk about category pages and landing pages. What does that truly mean, right? So, and also within context of the holidays, right? So when you're approaching the holidays and you really have a landing page that you want to test, you can do that in advance of the holidays. If you look at holiday traffic as being sort of a bell curve or a slope, if you will, you can always do some testing in the first part of it. And while you're gathering your SEO and you're driving a little bit of your traffic to it, maybe through ads or through email or something like that, test then, so you have at least an idea of whether or not the messaging that you're creating is going to appeal to when the flood comes of the actual shoppers. So that's one idea of doing it. But the idea is that if you create these pages in advance, or if you have them around the year and you're switching out the assets in order to make them applicable to whatever holiday is happening, the SEO of that particular effort will not go away. In fact, if you use a platform that can dynamically show products on the page and it will adapt to the various different users, then the searching SEO spiders will come to the site and they'll see, hey, this page is always content, it's always fresh, and as people come to it, the spiders will return, and that will give you better rankings as well. So you need to make sure that the freshness is always there, and that way, when you're dynamically promoting high value categories in the navigation, that changes, and you show prioritized results with the highest likely next click products first. That will allow you to use these as landing pages where people come in from ads or from other returning sources, anything, and that way they can come in and find something that's going to be relevant for them. So dynamic pages is huge because you can use them year round is the idea here. And from A/B testing, we found that doing this personalization rather than a static page can drive 9 to 12% higher revenue from these category pages like this. And in addition to that, what I'm not mentioning is that it will also drive maybe an extra 10% of SEO because of the organic quality of it. So that there's things that you can do here as a marketer around that, even without the AI. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So I talked about recommendations earlier, and I just realized, that might be a concept that people don't understand quite what that means when I talk about recommendation strips. So I have a little image here that shows what those are. On the left, you can see, there's a recommendation strip that's on a regular web page, and on the right, there's one that's embedded within an email. So you have on-site recommendations and email recommendations, and ideally, these will pull from the same personalized source. So that there's not this big disconnect from what you're showing in email when they come to the site. You know, that the journey needs to be seamless, and the only way to do that is to make sure that this persona, this profile that you generate, is aware of this user and is able to pivot in real time to their needs. But doing these kinds of things will allow you to boost, click-through rates, conversion rates, and revenue per visit, which I think is the Uber metric that I always look for, because it's a combination of conversion rates and average order value. So if you're doing well on RPV, I think everything looks much better, especially around looking at your email traffic. But the idea here is that you need to make sure that you're enhancing this. You're showing these product recommendation strips in places like the product display page, your product page, the cart, modal cart windows, the home page, even on dead end pages like null search and wish list pages that haven't been added on to yet. Putting these recommendations in there will help people jumpstart their shopping journey, because they will be optimized for their personalization from the get-go. And depending on how you place those, a 404 error page no longer is a dead end. People may come to this based on an old search or something, and maybe some landing pages that you deprecated, but it's still there. People come to it, and they will still have this 404 error page that has a may we suggest type widget on it, and chances are that the way that these things are created and the AI behind them, it will show something compelling, so that they will click through and they will continue on the journey rather than just saying, oops, I'm just going to bounce here. So keeping them engaged is huge, and we see that from this type of a personalized approach, you get even up to 14% additional revenue when these recommendations are added, versus an email, versus not having them at all, or versus having a static list that is not personalized. Next slide, please. So the one thing I left out of this so far, I've talked about category pages, and I've talked about recommendations and email and all kinds of different approaches here. But search, search is really huge. So routinely when you look at your site, you'll see that the most engaged and committed visitors use search. And by that I mean when they click on search, they're much more highly likely to convert, especially if they actually use search. So once they've actually clicked through on a search term, these guys are in it. They're not just sort of the fly-by-night people that come in and just look at a page and then bounce. They've already shown deep intent, and we need to take those signals of intent that are done through search and use that in order to, well, what I like to call pivot on that, on those signals that they're sending. So search sites that do a good job at exposing search typically have 10 to 15%, sometimes even 20% of all traffic goes through search, especially sites with huge catalogs. But search typically commands an outsized revenue percentage based on the fact that maybe 10 to 15% of traffic comes through it. They'll oftentimes, I'll see search be like 35 to 40% of revenue because it's a very highly engaged source. So don't overlook search, and the signals of intent that people are giving you through search, through typing in keywords, are huge. So for instance, if I come to a site and I type in diamond rings or silver diamond rings or something along those lines, I've given it a couple of signals of intent there. So what does that mean to the AI? Well, it says, okay, now that you've done that, and now you've clicked on a diamond ring, and within the diamond ring, you've clicked on 3 rings in a row that were all wedding rings, and they were all in the $1,000 range, for instance. Well, that means that when you're now typing in ring into search the next time around, we already know that the context is diamond, the price range, and we also know that maybe silver is a top item, and wedding. So we can show these, even if you type ring in search, the site should know that your intent was to look for wedding rings that are in that price range and within that type of with a diamond stone. So that's how we can help. And the way I see it is that when you're talking about personalizing in this way, your search on site will have informed the recommendations, that will have informed category pages. And so when you go back to search, you don't feel like you're starting over, because a lot of shoppers will come to a site and the site will know them because they've been there many times. And they've always searched for like red shirts, for instance. and now they type in shirt and it's showing them all different kinds of colors, and it feels like, man, doesn't it know that I was looking for red shirts? Well, it should, right? And that's where the AI and machine learning comes in. So that's one thing I wanted to cover here as well, because any intent that's been given in search, these high quality textual relevant intents can be passed on to recommendations, category and landing pages, email, targeted content, everything else. So do keep that in mind. And as a marketer, you can probably make segments based on what people are searching for and sending them directly to high quality landing pages rather than relying on search results that are not personalized. So that would be a good workaround. Next slide, please. Thank you much. So as a recap, I know that was a lot of a lot of words all fired at you at once. I have a diagram on the right there, and these are the areas on the site that we work on most at Reflektion from a product perspective to address. You see search in the at the 10 o'clock position there, and then site recommendations, content banners, HTML content that you can also target is another piece of it. Pages, that talks about the category pages and landing pages, and then email. All those things combined need all the signals of intent, and all the shopper experience that happens between all those things needs to be tied together in our vision. And that's where the machine learning and AI comes together, and it builds this centralized profile database that you see at the middle. And then, of course, there's a UI to sort of, one ring to rule them all, if you will. But that allows us to identify and adapt to purchase intent in real time. And that's the really tricky bit. So it requires far less rules, or no rules at all, even if you want to let the AI do its thing. And it works across omni-channel, mobile, web, email, search, everything, in store. Buy online, pick up in store is a big thing for us. And then we also look at continuous improvement of conversion rates, because the more you learn about a shopper's habits over time, and the more it allows, it learns about the historical things like holiday behavior. That all goes into the big melting pot, and it can adapt to real-time flashes, like, for instance, around COVID, when certainly there was a run on certain products that marketers weren't expecting. I mean, so all kinds of fun stories around that. But that's one thing where the AI was able to catch those things before the marketers did, before they could even create landing pages for those things. We were already showing those products and being able to catch that wave even as it was before it even crested. So that's the overall idea here. So I hope this was somewhat informing to everybody, and I will pass it back over to Patrick if there's anything else to add.
Kicking my video back on so I can join you. That was great, Franz. Thank you. Super interesting stuff. It's no wonder that our solutions work so well together. So thanks for the great insight into Reflektion.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Here.
So that's why we need you.
Exactly. Well, I want to open the floor to any questions. Let's see, does anybody have any? And let me see where I can see them here. And just so you know, you'll get a copy of the presentation after as well. It'll get sent around to you. That was one of the questions that I saw come into the chat. Here we go. Okay, I've got them. Opening up my chat here.
Yeah, I can't see them, so if it's for me, please read it.
Perfect. So I've got one for you, Franz. What kind of personalization challenges and opportunities did you notice with COVID-19?
That's a good one. Yeah, so COVID-19, it started unearthing products in people's catalogs that they weren't considering to be top products at all. So they were suddenly seeing all this revenue happening in these, well, I don't want to call them backwater categories, but yeah, backwater categories, like, like a third level accessory type category, like, whereas those weren't their primary products at all, like hand sanitizer or Clorox, those types of things, basically, ways to clean surfaces and such. And we were looking like even on pet sites where these were not meant necessarily. These were more meant in the context of pet sites, but these were generic products, and suddenly these things were selling like hotcakes. So the challenge was that if you have a static menu, category navigation at the top, that these things would have to be so deeply hidden, without people finding them. So one way to address it would be to have dynamically sort of sorted categories where these types of categories suddenly would come up, or use the insights. In our case with Reflektion, we have a advanced analytics component which shows movers and shakers and trends in terms of categories, which is really important because that's how you were able to unearth that these categories were suddenly just on fire. And then marketers were able to take those and turn those into landing pages and campaigns and such, and really highlight the fact that they had those products that up until that point were not even, were sort of a nice to have in their inventory, but now suddenly these things were on fire. And that stuff changed at the beginning of COVID almost on a week-to-week basis. With company, I was talking about tents earlier, and the reason for that was there was suddenly a run on tents because everybody thought that they could escape out into the wild for a couple of weeks and outrun COVID, right? So these 2-person tents were all being sold like crazy, and guess what? You know what went down in sales? 6-person tents. So people were trying to do social distancing, the
Right.
sort of the backwoods way and everything like that. It was hilarious. Well, that's not hilarious. I mean, that's a bit of Schadenfreude on my part, but it was just funny to watch this type of behavior happening, and you could just see just from week to week things were changing like that, and the ability for the platform to adapt to it and for us to be able to see what was happening and allow marketers to do something with this information in real time was priceless.
Yeah, no, it's funny to think about that. It wouldn't necessarily be intuitive what you'd expect. It's like hard to predict how that stuff comes out. So having the AI to help you there is key.
Yeah, bottles of Clorox on a pet site, on a pet website, like what?
Oh yeah, right. Like who could have thought?
We didn't even know they sold that. It's so far down on the list of products, so but there it is, right? And people were
Right.
using that through search, and all those signals of intent were right
Yeah.
there for everybody to see.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got another question. Let's see. Have you noticed any trends change with the way that brick and mortar advertising takes place online? It's interesting. Yeah, I'll take this one. So we've seen a growth of interest in local inventory ads, which it's a little bit paradoxical because that's basically Google's version of Google Shopping for in-store traffic. It's to drive traffic to store locations. I think that what we've seen is that users are less interested in just sort of like exploring and going to stores and seeing, kind of engaging in the adventurous journey of like looking around for what they want to buy. And a lot more of that searching is happening online, and they want to identify the right store that has the right product that they want. And then they want to go pick it up curbside. So there's been a pouring forth of LIA interest, I would say, local inventory ads. And so that's something that's interesting for anybody that has brick and mortar stores and is doing Google Shopping but is not doing LIAs. It's definitely something that you could talk to us about, and we could help facilitate for you in a big way. And we're partnering closely with Google to develop that as well. I think that's the main thing that I've observed around. I mean, of course, there's the decline, generally speaking, in brick and mortar activity, but the way that that's sort of been manifested in the online space has been through this turn to LIAs. So let me see what else we've got here. Okay, how long before the holidays do you typically A/B test search and recommendations? Assume that one's for you, Franz.
Oh, okay. It depends on the run up to the holiday, right? So, for instance, right after Thanksgiving, people start shopping for real for Christmas. But if you know that you have Christmas items on the store on your page, and from a previous year, you understand that people start shopping for that, say, early September or something like that. Take the first couple of weeks of that ramp up period before the full flood of traffic comes to your site, take that time to do A/B testing. And I'm thinking about offer testing in emails and such, and use that information to also try out your landing pages, see whether or not your pricing and your user experience is in good shape. That's when you start doing your testing, so that you have it ready to go and ready for full traffic once that time frame is over. And another tip for those types of pages is when you do embark on testing like that, you want to get results quickly. And the only way to do that is to make sure that your offers are significantly different. So if you're thinking you want to test with a 10, 20, and 30% discount or something like that, try 10 and 30, because you want to know whether or not you're hitting a spot where there's nobody cares anymore about the discounts, right? It doesn't really give you any more search. But if those offers are too close together, or if the types of products you're recommending on the site, if they're not if they're not really hitting what you're expecting from them, learn, fail early, fail fast, when you're testing, so that you can move forward and get the right things on the site. So start in the first 2 weeks when that traffic starts trending up, before you get there, and also learn from what you did last year, and then keep notes and understand, whether or not your audience is still the same. Has your site changed? Suddenly you've got twice as many visitors as last year. Are they still behaving the same way, right? What are their sources of traffic? Know those things and come up with smart hypotheses around them, and test that, test it a lot.
Great, thank you. Okay, question, this one looks like it's for Feedonomics. Do I need to have someone on my staff that needs to be trained, that needs to be a trained Feedonomics expert? No, you don't. I was alluding to this earlier. The way that we've structured our approach is to provide all of the support and service that you need as far as people go. So as long as you've got somebody that can kind of project manage from your side and can communicate with our team, it's all good. We can facilitate all of the data ingestion, all of the optimization and distribution to different channels. We actually have a couple of different service layers too. There's an approach that is very much so more stripped down, like basic, we're just going to optimize the feed, and then if you need anything, come and talk to us and we'll make it happen. And then we also have a service level that's much more engaging, and you have a dedicated point of contact that you're meeting with on a monthly basis, and they're helping you plan strategically, what is the next A/B test? What were the conclusions from the last A/B test? How do we need to prepare for Q4, right? Like, what are the things in the feed that are important? What's your service and support schedule during this period, and what are my escalations? All of that is stuff that we can basically walk you through and facilitate, and you don't need to have like a trained Feedonomics person. Although by the time they, once they've started working with us a bit, they'll already become familiar with the platform, of course. So that will happen, but it's not necessary to get started.
Oh, by the way, I had one more
Please.
add-on to, I think it dovetails into both our questions.
Yeah.
For instance, with the testing strategy, one thing that we do at Reflektion a lot is looking at what types of offers or what types of products are people looking for on any given page. For instance, you can organize products. You can show top trending items by, say, revenue. Which ones are the highest revenue drivers on the site, or which ones have the highest number of views or highest number of ratings or a number of orders, or maybe by newness. Which ones are the most recently added ones. And between all those, those choices that you have, you can test all those things against each other, and that can be done directly from within the Reflektion tool without just a few button clicks. And then you can learn whether or not your audience is more sensitive to what other people are looking at or what's new. I mean, those types of things, those questions make a big difference, across different types of vendors that have e-commerce websites. Some live and die by newness, and other ones are all about popularity with other people. So it's important to be able to understand those types of things and set up a test with the right recommendation settings and make that happen. So that's another thing I wanted to add, because I think that's a very easy thing to establish and to test.
And do you guys, just for my own curiosity, do you guys have some ways of like helping your clients kind of guess at what to test and where to begin that search, or does the tool kind of surface all of that for them, so they kind of don't need to already have an intuition about it? The tool will basically help them know what to test effectively.
In some cases, for instance, if you have a test and it runs and you've created something
Yeah.
and you learn something that you didn't realize, I mean, the results will help drive that type of insight. We do have the type of reporting that does show whether, what types of products are useful or are doing particularly well in a given time. And then a marketer could look at those and go, "Hey, wait, those are all new
Yeah.
products," or
Got it.
we do have that kind of stuff. But to draw a lasso around it, sometimes it does require a marketer to look at it and go, "Wait a second,
Yep.
why are all these products that are leather, for instance, why are
Mm,
these all suddenly doing so well, right?" And then, well, there's a reason for it, right? Because
sure.
there's something going on, or maybe it's the opposite, right? So so that's why it helps to sort of look at it with a trained eye. But I don't know if there's many tools out there that would actually look at what's currently selling hot and
Yeah.
make those types of informed decisions. The AI will know, because it will
Yeah.
automatically find those products that have a lot of traction, but not always is that obvious to the marketer. They'll just see that it works really well, and they want to then see if they can get more of the same, and that's how it typically comes out. So it's sort of a mixed answer there, but the idea is you let the AI do its thing, and it will get you, like 99% of the way there. Are there some ideas that you can sort of have in order to
Sure.
enhance the AI based on what you're thinking? You want to see if it works. That is what we can do with the platform for sure.
Great. Great. Thank you, Franz. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody, for joining us today. Hope you learned something. Hope it was useful. If you have any questions, please reach out to either of our teams, Reflektion or Feedonomics. We'll be sure to get those questions answered, and we'd love to be speaking with you and working with you closely through this holiday season. Good luck.